Hello, 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 everyone. How's it going? Welcome today to another round of mixing with me, Jane Arnison. Nice to have you here with me. We'll just wait and get a few people to come on in. Whilst we're waiting, let me know where you are in the world. I'm obviously coming. Well, not obviously. Those of you who haven't joined the stream before, I am in Berlin. I'm an Aussie who lives in Berlin. And where are you? Where are you all from in the world? Let me know. So today we are doing a track called Skynet, and I don't know who sent it in because I don't have their name on the folder. So maybe, hopefully, whoever wrote Skynet is here with us today. Let us know. Andrew, hey, how you doing? Nice to see you. Marek, what's up? Nice to see you there. Andrew from the Midlands. Hey, Andrew. Jess for drums, 13. St. Louis, Missouri. All right. Awesome. Who else have we got? Prof X. Dean. Hey, Dean. How's it going? Pablo. Hey, mate. What's up? Awesome. So, so we're doing Skynet, the track Skynet, and if you wrote it, let me know. I apologize that I don't know which amazing producer wrote it, so let me know. Someone from Trinidad, hey, is it a Agayi? Is that Tommy? Let me know if I said your name correctly. Hey, Clinton, how are you? Awesome, good stuff. We got people from India, yes, big up India, love India. All right. Okay, so now those of you, it looks like we've got some new faces or maybe names rather than faces because I can't see you all, but it's really great to have some new people here. So let me give you a little bit more information about who I am. My name, as I said before, is Jane Arnison, and I am a mix engineer, a producer, a composer, and I do a lot of work, around the years I've done work in, kind of popular music, pop and rock and indie and stuff like that. Since I've been in Berlin, as I say, you move to Berlin, you get into dance music. And that certainly was the case for me. So I'm doing, lots of techno and house and, different kinds of beat and bass music and stuff like that as well in the last 10 years since I've been in Berlin. Okay, so I see that the track is from Drunk Bishop. Awesome. Hey, Drunk Bishop, what's up? We're doing Skynet today. So I hope that you're going to enjoy the sesh. So I mix engineer and I also work as an educator, which is really helpful for doing things like these streams. I've worked for a lot of years in different universities and things like that. So I teach this stuff a lot. So any questions, fire them at me. I'll be checking in on the chat as we go. And if you have any questions that, that could be related to what I'm doing here, or maybe there's something else about mixing, we always have like a chat at the end, so you can throw out your questions. And of course, if I miss any of your questions, throughout the stream, you can throw them at me at the end. But I do try and keep it pretty interactive. So today the theme, each week I've tried to kind of look at different aspects of mixing. Every mix you get, there's always, every track has its needs, I guess. So as a mix engineer, we're always looking to see, to understand the track and then to maybe look at the aspects of the track that we can help to enhance it so that the end result is even better. It's a J-E. Cool. Okay. Hey, a J-E. Thank you for the correction. So that's what we're going to look at. So in terms of the theme of today, I said last week in the stream, who would like me to mix in Ableton? And everyone was like, please mix in Ableton. So not to disappoint, that's what we're doing today. And I've actually just got my hands on the new Live 11. So I'm really enjoying that. There's not too much of the features of Live 11 that I'll be actually kind of featuring in this mix today, but there are a few sweet things that we can check out. What else to say? I mean, I guess you all know of ADSR. Some of you will, lots of you will, some of you don't. If you don't, definitely get onto the ADSR website and check it out. Amazing portal for, all things plugins and samples, and beyond that we've got tutorials, live streams like this one. You know, if even beyond the website, you can get on the Discord community, which is really cool. There's so much great stuff going on there. Rumor has it that I might make an appearance in the Discord in the next months to do, you know, to kind of like even get a little bit more interactive with the community. So if you haven't joined Discord, make sure you definitely join up for that. As well, to say that if you want to get your mix featured on this live stream and me to kind of do a mix, you got to get onto the Discord and upload your mix there. Okay, so check it out. Awesome. All right. So with no further ado, I think we should just get into it, because time always flies, and before we know it, an hour has gone. All right. Okay. So let's switch it over. Okay, so today, as I said, we're doing Skynet. It's a really cool track. Now, Drunk Bishop is this. This is like not Blade Runner, Terminator. Is it Terminator movies? Skynet? Am I correct? Love Terminator movies. Big fan. If it is, legend. All right, so as I do always, if those of you who have been with the stream before, we always start off by listening to the track. Yeah, Terminator, awesome. Which is your favorite Terminator movie? 1, 2, 3, was it 4? 1, 2, 3 or 4? Was there a new one? 5? Anyway, everyone, what's your favorite Terminator movie? Okay, focus on mixing and music. So as I do every week, every mix I do actually, we listen first, okay? So this is one of the most important things, I think, is that we really get caught up in the doing and we forget that the most powerful thing that we have as a musician, as a sound and audio artist, is to listen. It's a sonic experience. So we listen and we try and get into the track and then try and see if there's things that we can identify that we might be able to improve, okay? So I'm going to play the track through just the pre-mix. And I want you all to do the same thing. So at home, write it down. If you were the mix engineer on this, what do you think? You know, I always say there's one like, what are the heroes of the track? What's the vibe and the mood and the heroes of the track that we must remember to hold on to? And can you hear anything that you think you could improve? And what do you think the problem might be? Okay. So let's check it out. Also, as always with this, if the levels are weird, let me know. All right. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Now I do use Ableton a lot, but I don't use it for mixing all the time, so it might be a bit slow, but all is well. Okay. So here we go. Let's check it out. Skynet by Drunk Bishop. Okay, yes, Skynet. Very, very cool track by Drunk Bishop. Awesome. Okay. So now, when I listen to that track, the first thing that I would say, now please feel free to also put in what you heard, if you heard anything. The first thing that I noticed is that the vibe is strong, okay? So there's a lot that's great about this mix already, okay? So that's really important for me to remember that, to hold on to that, and to not lose it. So the idea is a kind of the wistfulness of it, the moodiness. There's a really nice groove with the hi-hats that's happening, and the the kind of this I guess, yeah, the kind of nostalgia-y moodiness, right? So yes, okay, so lots of really great stuff to it. Also, and I'll talk about this a little bit again. Someone said talk about the basics a little bit. In terms of the gain stage and the levels and everything, it's really good as well. So another big thumbs up to Drunk Bishop. It's the levels are pretty well managed, so good stuff. There's a couple of things I'll look at. Now, in terms of things that we want to like maybe look at, how can we enhance it or build it up or kind of fix it up in any way? There are a few comments coming in, which is really good. So Dean is saying more piano, less hats. I like it. Okay, good. Andrew comments on the rhythm, and I definitely, that's a really good comment, Adam, because the rhythm is really great. Like it's got a really nice movement there. And then Clinton is saying the arp sounds a little bit muffled and it's masking the piano. It sounds like it's a little bit flat or needs to be lightened up, and the vocal sample could be more present and open. Really great comments there, Clinton. Awesome stuff. Okay, so definitely there's some masking happening for sure between a few of the elements actually. So we need to think about now when there's masking, what is masking? Some of you might be asking. Masking is when the frequency, well, a sound is covering into certain parts of the timbre of another sound, okay? So, let's say in the low part of the kick drum will be competing with the low part of the bass. And so in order for one of them, and, that builds up when we end up having a mix that takes up a lot of energy but doesn't feel powerful and doesn't have clarity and therefore, doesn't reach its full potential, okay? So what we need to do then is prioritize the certain sounds and certain frequency bands, okay? So that's what we're going to check out so far. Yeah, awesome. Drunk Bishop, yeah, great track. And I'm really great that everyone's hearing that as well. So, and a couple of people are saying it is a taste thing and, like it's hard to critique because it's an awesome track. Absolutely, it is an awesome track and there's no taking away from it. And this is one of these important things to do is that, I think Sean was saying it's a taste thing. Now, that's a really difficult question because as soon as you kind of go, okay, it's taste, then it means that you kind of stop yourself from being able to make decisions and then you fall flat from being able to do work, right? So if I've been empowered by Bishop, in this case, Drunk Bishop's my client, I have to try and connect with the intention that Drunk Bishop has in the track. So whenever I make a decision, I have to make the decision based on, obviously my taste, I can't help it, but also based on what I believe the producer is trying to achieve in this track, okay? And if I make decisions always with that kind of in the forefront, then I don't need to worry about that question. It's a taste thing, right? The second thing to say about the taste comment is that I always, of course, any mix engineer would always check with the producer and they'll go, yeah, that's cool, but it's a little bit too forward moving with the rhythm now. Can you chill it back? And of course, all these things can be changed, okay? So yeah, I think it's always an interesting thing to just talk about that first because it's easy to shut yourself off before you've even had a chance. So intention of the track, trust yourself and your instincts and move forward, okay? So basically what we're going to look at today is there's some, always mixing is always about EQ for me. It's a really big part of, it's a really big part of mixing is EQ and getting the balance right between the aspects. Now I want to talk about a concept which is, now I'm going to go big for this just for a second before I get into the mix. So sometimes people talk about mixing, we talk about a mix space, right? So we imagine it as a three-dimensional space. And if we imagine it as a room or something, or, something that has boundaries. So when we think about the frequency, we're thinking about the top to bottom dimension, right? So this field. When we want to think about width, we think about obviously this, stereo and kind of movement around the space. And then the other one, which people often forget, is the depth, right? So this depth perception. So as a mix engineer, I'm thinking about can I maximize and optimize that? So even if the track is already really good, I'm thinking, is there ways that I can kind of bring this mix even more alive into the mix space? And that's what I think is going to be one of my big jobs today, because there's not a huge amount to fix up. There is one thing that I did here, and it is with the pianos. And the pianos feel to me as though they might have been a little bit over compressed, and I'll play it for you later. And potentially what I would do in this situation is I might ask the producer if they could send me the file again uncompressed, and I can use their compressed one and I can see what they're trying to get at, but have a little bit more room to move with. So we're going to have a look at that as well. Okay, so now we've heard the track. Let's have a quick blast of what I've done so far in the mix, and then we'll get into it. Beat Crusher, yeah, okay, cool. All right, so let's check out my version. Okay, so with this, as I said before, again, mixing is not always about like totally changing everything, and hopefully not, right? You don't want to be changing it. So I think that we've just done some nice little adjustments in this mix to really just make it pop out a little bit more, right? We're just making something really good, great, if we can. Right, okay. So now what do we do there? So I think maybe what I'll do is I'm going to actually open up one where I've got everything turned off. I'm going to walk you through stuff. Cool. Yeah, nice comments there. Okay, so awesome. Yeah, pulling the blanket off the speaker, dusting off the cobwebs. Love it. Yeah, exactly. That's what we do. We're cleaning house when we're mixing. We're cleaning stuff up. All right. Cool, awesome. Okay, so let's check it out. Now, I want to go through, as we're mixing in Ableton, I want to show you a few cool things about how we can kind of set up the mix. I always put the mic like right in front of my eye. It's a bit silly. Okay, first things first, the premix here, I have it set up on an individual track, and a little hack that I learned is you take the output not to the master, you send it out, external out, and what that does is it bypasses the master bus processing. So that's really, really good. So then you don't need to turn off the master bus when you listen to the reference, right? You don't want the premix going through any processing. Okay, so that's a really super simple hack. The other thing it's very important to say is that now for this stream, I have limiting on the master. When I do a mix, I don't have a limiter on. I will have a limiter on the chain, and I will turn it on at certain points in time, basically when I feel like I've finished the mix and I'm ready to bounce it out, but I don't mix into a limiter. I think it's really dangerous, personally. I don't think there's many mix engineers that mix with a limiter on. There might be times when they'll turn it on or off. And even if, you know, your favorite mix engineer does mix with a limiter on, I would just say as a word of caution for those of you who are learning to mix, as a learning thing, it can be really, really dangerous to mix with the limiter on. So I would really encourage you to just put the limiter on at the end when you're going to bounce it, when you want to kind of, you know, get the vibe. Really, all a limiter should be doing in the mix is turning it up. That's it. That's all this is doing today, is making the level so it's balanced. Okay. So regardless of the level, it's really important that the premix is matched at the same volume. Okay. So if you don't have them matched, when you listen, when you see when I did that A-B really quickly, we can hear the things that are different and the things that are the same. If the levels are really up and down, you cannot interpret it. Okay. So that's a really important thing, is set the levels of the premix and the level of your mix properly. Take a minute. Doesn't take that long, just take a minute. So Drunk Bishop is saying it gives a false sense of how the mix actually sounds. Yeah. Well, I think that what can happen is that you can overdrive the limiter, and then you can introduce weird problems with transients that you might not be aware of, and then you're trying to fix them in other aspects of the mix. It also, and you know, you'll be likely to change the way that you're working with let's say EQ and high, particularly transients and the higher artifacts that come into it. So, you know, the mastering engineer is going to limit and do the final processing in a way that doesn't introduce those artifacts. But yeah, anyway. Now, people saying there's no rules for mixing besides make it sound good, I think that is a really unhelpful statement. I mean, that's cool to say that. And absolutely, mixing is about make it sound good. But what we're here to do today is to talk about, to try and help people learn how to mix. So I could just say, yeah, I just mix, I make it sound good, and that's the end of it. But there are lots of strategies, and there are lots of techniques, and, you know, there can be the reality is in mixing, there's often similar mistakes that people make, or similar issues that happen, and similar processes that we can do. So there's definitely lots of experimentation that goes on within that, absolutely, and knock yourself out, and we all experiment. But what we're here to do today is to talk about the things that can be really helpful about for you to take with you when you want to, you know, improve and to test out how you go as a mix engineer. Cool. Okay. So let's get into it again. Okay, so now we've talked about the references. Now let's have a look at my master bus. So the master bus this is my what I tend to do is I will mono out the bass. I will always use a mix bus compressor, and I always use an SSL mix bus compressor of some description. That's just my taste. And again, you can, you know, use whatever you want. SSL are really good. I also come from an analog background, and I use SSL consoles, so I really like to use this as much as I can. I really like to have, particularly with bass music and any kind of electronic music, there's often a lot of dominance in the bottom end, and so it's a really good idea to have a high pass filter in the mix bus so that the low frequencies don't get compressed and they can just get straight through. Okay. So that's what I do. Now with the mix bus, I tend to set the compressor to a small ratio, 2:1, and with a slow attack and a fast-ish release. Now the idea of the slow attack is that you don't want to clamp down on the transients. You just want it to slightly kind of control, bring things together. It's called a glue compressor, and Ableton's got a version of this. Okay, so the idea is that it kind of just glues things together a bit. You can also have the release set to auto, but I like to set it myself, and I set it based on the groove of the music, the way the needle is moving, and how I feel like I'm hearing it responding. So let's have a little listen, and I'll add up. Actually, maybe I'll keep on walking you through the mix bus. The next thing that I have on my mix bus is tape. Now, I don't always use tape, but today I felt like this vibe, this track would work with that kind of subtle kind of saturation and graininess that tape gives it. It gives it a bit of glue. It's subtle. Use it or don't use it. It's not a big thing, but I do. So I'm just doing it because that's what I do. Then an EQ. And again, I don't always do this, and I didn't really do much at all with this one. All I did was boost some ultra highs just to give it a bit more air, because I wanted this track to feel like that kind of really airiness, but not a kind of a shrill. So if you see, this is 27,000, so it's really, really high. It's just, it's more felt than heard at that kind of range. Okay. And then that's it. Okay, so I have a mono out the bass, so there's no phase shift and things like that. I have a mix bus compressor. I put a bit of tape on it just for fun, and then I have some EQ. Here I have some meters. I mix into a VU meter, which I really like. Oh, you can't see that. It's on my other screen. VU meter. The limiter, as I explained, just for the stream. And then I also have another meter, which is really giving me really good values so I can see where the mix is at and what's going on with it. Okay, so that's a mix bus. So I've turned everything on, and let's have a listen with just the mix bus on. I'll turn it on and off. So, off. Oh, that's the limiter turning on and off as well, sorry. So you can see already that the mix bus processing has done some good work, right? And now and the important thing for me is that I set this up before I start doing everything else. Okay, so the idea is that you mix into a mix bus compressor. You don't put it on at the end. So that's just the guide, is that we set these up first as we want to kind of go with it. With the EQs, I don't always put the EQs on straight away. I often put EQ on throughout the mix. I might not start off with it, okay? So that I might kind of figure that out, but I will always start with the mix bus compressor on beforehand. Let's just have a look at that mix bus compressor and see what it's doing. Now let's change this. See, it's not moving in the way that I wanted it to there. So I wanted to see that needle working with the kick drum rhythm. That was the thing that I was looking for there. Oh, and the attack got fast. I don't know why. What happened there? Let's try that again. Oh, there we go. That's better. Cool. Now, the reason for the 2-to-1 ratio is that there's going to be lots of compression happening at lots of different stages. So I'm not a huge fan of like slamming compression. The idea is like stages of gain or stages of dynamic control rather than one lot, okay? So that's just something to think about, is that there's going to be compression, so let's just say with the drums, the kick drum will have a compressor, then the drum group has a compressor, and then the whole mix has a compressor. So that's already 3 lots of compression. Just a little fun quiz trivia fact. When you add compression ratios, like 2-to-1 and 4-to-1 and 6-to-1, let's say, does the ratio, does it increase by adding up, or does it increase by multiples? Does anyone know the answer to that? So if I have 3 ratios, 2-to-1, 4-to-1, 6-to-1, what's the final compression ratio? Is it 2 plus 4 plus 6? Or is it 2 times 4 times 6? Let me know. It's good thing to know, to understand about how compression works, for sure. Okay, so TNN has said by multiples, legend. Okay, so that means it is, if you go 2 plus 4 plus 6, who's good at maths? What's the difference in the ratio? So 2 plus 4 is 10, is 12-to-1 if it adds up, and if it multiplies, it's 4 times 6 is 24, times 2 is 48-to-1, okay? So the difference is 12-to-1 or 48-to-1. So that's a really big difference. So be aware of that. It's multiples, yeah? So when we have 3 different compressors on, we're multiplying the ratio. So, go easy basically is what I would say. All right. Now let's check out the drums first of all. I think that this is the groove and everything is important to build up. So let's have a little look inside it. I do want to spend more time on some of the other aspects, so I'll just make sure I keep on moving. Okay, so let's start with the kick drum. With the kick drum, With the kick drum, I felt I wanted it to be mono, so I monoed it out. Then I also, let's have a listen to it. Now, the kick drum is nice. There's no problems with it. So for me, what am I trying to do here? I don't by myself just want to start processing the kick drum. The interesting thing about the kick drum is when we add it with the bass. Okay, take the bass off. Oh, hang on. Oh, it's my bad Ableton skills. Let's try again. I don't know if you can hear that, but when the bass comes in, we start to lose some detail of the kick drum, or vice versa, if we just have the bass on. Okay, so we're losing information, we're losing details. So what I need to do here is now to think about what aspects of the kick drum need, where's what are the key aspects of the kick drum sound that I must bring out or I must maintain, and what aspects can I lose in the mix, okay? And vice versa with the bass. All right, so I'll just start with the kick drum, even though I kind of work them out both together. We'll start, just for ease, we'll start down here. Okay. Okay, so first of all with this, yeah, we're losing bass. Okay, so now with this, I came in, I did a low cut. Now quite often doing a low cut, this is at 40 hertz. When doing a low cut below kind of 30 or 40 hertz, it cleans up the low end and it makes it feel a little bit tighter and a little bit more controlled. So that's what I did with this kick. And if you have a steep curve, you often, because of the phase shift, it brings out a little bit of a boost at the crossover point, right? So that is why I did a really steep curve. Okay, so what it actually often does, it gets a sense as bringing out it actually makes it feel like it's getting more bass even though you're cutting the bass. So let me see if I can give you an example of this. Do you see that boost? I don't know if you can all hear that, but just if you right at that point, there's a little boost, and that's to do with phase shift. So if you're interested in phase shift and EQ, there's a really good Fab Filter video that you can check out for that. Okay, so the next thing, now with this, the high frequencies, I just rolled them off a little bit because we didn't really need them, and I wanted to clear up some space up on the top. But then this part here is very important because it relates to the bass. So this is 160 hertz, and I felt like that needed to remain in the bass. Okay, so I cut that out. Let's have a listen. So it's that bit there. Now it doesn't, if I take it out, okay, we certainly were losing a little bit of power, but it doesn't change the kick that much, right? So I felt like that was okay. But now because we lost a little bit of power, I still kind of need to balance it up. So now I've done a few things here. Again, with this, I play around with a few different techniques to show you so you can try these things out for yourselves. So then I added a saturator, which is going to give us a little bit more grit in the harmonics and the overtones. Okay. Bit more guts. Then I added a compressor, this is an 1176 compressor. 1176 FET style compressor, characterized by being really fast. I really love them on drums. I just always use them. There's a million versions. This is a UAD. I like it. There's lots of great ones out there. Now with this, again, thinking about how to set this for the kick drum, let's experiment a little bit. The faster that I had the attack, and the attack is at 7, not at 1. Some people get confused about that. The faster I had the attack, we're going to lose the energy. It's going to clamp down on the transient. So with kick drums, often you want to have a slower attack so that it doesn't feel like you're suffocating the kick drum. So let's have a check it out. Okay, try again. No. Okay, let's bring it back. Subtle, yes. Okay, so it's a subtle little difference where it's controlling the kick a little bit, but it doesn't kind of clamp down on it too much. Okay, so take it off. we're losing a little bit of that low boominess as well, which I like. Okay, so I got that far with the kick. Let's now go to the bass and let's check out the bass. Okay, so listening to this bass, the bass has a tendency to be like, someone was saying before, like a blanket. So it felt to me as like the way that the bass is kind of really there, and there's comb filtering going on, which I'll show you in a minute, is that it was like just very dominant. And so we need to kind of think about ways that we can get this for the kind of beating aspect of it to not kind of come through so much, and then to give it, when we kind of, again, we're kind of controlling it, then we diminish its life or its guts a little bit. So now we need to bring it back. And I use saturation, and lots of mix engineers use saturation as a way to kind of bring it back. So let's check this out. So what did I do? Okay, so here I'm just taking off the ultra lows. It's at 35 hertz. Again, it's just to clean it up. We can't really hear it anyway. Now this is an example of comb filtering. Can you see that? Comb filtering. Now I've got this cute little tool, and some of you might have heard of this. It's called a surfer EQ. And this is, okay, so basically the surfer EQ will follow the notes, because with a bass line, there's a certain resonance, but then the note changes. And so then you have to, how do I catch the EQ? Well, this awesome plugin, it surfs the EQ, and so it moves with the node. So let's check it out. And you can also set it so that it works on the overtones when there's comb filtering, which is like this. Okay, so let's check it. Oh. Okay, so it's kind of controlling. And the important thing here is that I identified that it was the first overtone that was the problem, not the fundamental. So now how did I do that? I did that by listening. Okay, so I'll bring it out as well. But let me just demonstrate the surfer EQ. Okay, so isn't that cool? So see, it moves with the first overtone. Awesome. Okay, so how did I know that the problem was the first overtone? Now I'm going to go back to this one. I'll make it big. Okay, now I can see here, this one here is often louder. And if I go one step further and I select it, you can hear the part you can identify which part it is. It's that bit that we don't like. It's not that bit. We like that bit. Okay? So I was like, this is the issue. It's all around here. Okay? All of that. Right? So, so we don't want that. Get rid of. Okay, so, and then that's how I know which one it was. All right. So, where we're at. Okay, so we've controlled it now, but now it's kind of meh. It's lost its vibe, right? So, next thing, I did some EQ. Now, why am I using different EQ? Oh, what did I do there? Okay. Why I'm using different EQs, because different EQs have different uses and they have different sounds. So when I use like the Ableton EQ, it's like clean. It doesn't add anything, and simple cuts and changes and stuff like that. If I want to add a bit of guts or a bit of character, a bit of gusto, the Ableton EQ to me is too clean. So I would want to use something else. So I love, as you can tell, I love SSL. I'm using it again here. And what I've done is I've cut a little bit more of that kind of 200 region. I've put a little bit of a boost back into the sub, and then I've also brought out kind of 800, which is, the kind of the overtone region. So let's check it out. With it off, with it on. Okay, really helps it bring out. Okay, cool, we're getting something there, but still I wanted more. So then I went to the big guns and I brought out a tube-based distortion kind of overdrive saturator thingy. Harmonic Culture Vulture, this is also from UAD. Okay, now I'm really trying to get some of those low saturation notes coming through. Cool, feeling good. Okay, and then I finally compressed it. Now, the type of compressor I use is important. I used a slow compressor. So I want it to kind of, to try and bring out those pulsing beating notes. Okay, so, and let's see what we did here. See how it's really working on those. And that just really helps kind of balance it. Nice. Okay, so now let's bring the kick back in. Obviously I'm doing this whilst I'm listening to the kick. Cool. Now the kick to me also was still losing something a bit there. So I did a bit more EQ. I think I've done something with that bass. I've changed the level of it. Anyway, it's a bit too loud now. And bring it down just a touch. Okay, so because to me, and one of those things with and the reason that I spend some time on the bass and kick is because it's an area where everyone has trouble. So one of the most important aspects is that thinking about how are they going to work together and how can I bring them out and bring them kind of through, I guess, right? So EQ, working with saturation, thinking about compression to kind of control and balance certain aspects of the sound. So cool. Okay, so we've got the kick drum. All right, now let's keep on. I'll go a little bit faster from here. Then I've got the snares. I put them together. I did some really subtle, some simple EQ, and then I put another compressor on the snare. So let's add that in. Cool. Then with the snare, I felt like it needed some space, so I added in a room sound, and this is actually one of the Ableton 11 new. This is the hybrid reverb. So I used a dark snare room. Again, when you hear this now, you go, oh, God, that's quite loud. Is that that maybe doesn't sound nice? But in the mix with everything else in, you don't hear that sound. You just hear that the snare has a little bit more air and it makes it feel kind of better. So yeah, we'll hold on to that. Then we go to the hi-hats. The hi-hats have, again, some EQ and really just simple compression. The hi-hats were great. I didn't want to do too much with them. So just little things. And again, this was just subtly to manage it. So some of the high frequencies were cutting through a little bit too much for my taste. So I just did some subtle changes there. All right. Oops, not that. Let's just listen to the whole drum group. Okay. Cool. Okay, and then the final thing that I did, again, to give it a little bit more guts and a little bit more, is I used a drum bus. Now, this is from Ableton. You can, again, what this does a few things in one. So it does like saturation or distortion. It does a low frequency boost. It does transient. You can transient shaper, transient master. And it also does compression. Okay, so let's check out what I did with it. Okay, with it on now. Okay, so I've just got a tiny little bit of drive and crunch. Again, I don't want it to sound as though we've got this distorted track, but we've got we're bringing in just a little bit of dirt, I guess. The compressor is on, but I made sure that it wasn't too full on, and then I pushed the transient slightly. Someone's asking which headphones am I using. These headphones here are the HD25s. I do not mix with HD25s normally, obviously, but yeah, they work for streaming, so yeah. All right. One thing I also, as we're talking about about headphones, I'd really encourage you to use something like, God, I can't think of the brand now. Is it Sonarworks? That way they do EQ correction. I think it's really, really helpful and good to check out. So if you haven't checked those out, they're really good. Their software is really good. Okay, cool. So we've got the drums, okay? So the idea, again, drums, EQ, compression, bit of saturation. That's generally the vibe. And then some subtle use of space to give things a bit more dimension. Okay, so let's listen to drums and bass together. Yeah. I mean, I still still could be more finicky about the bass, and maybe I would, but we're getting there. Okay, so let's move on to what I felt was one of the aspects that needed more attention, which is these pianos. So let's check it out. So there's a couple of pianos. Where are they? Okay. So, yeah. So for me, the piano, the way that it was bit crushed and compressed is that it kind of was really hard for me to kind of help it to get through. It was either like too loud or when I brought it up, the parts of the sound that I didn't want were coming through. So it's a little bit of a challenge, but I made some headway with it. So the first thing I want to check out is I use this thing called an inflator. I've always really wanted to use it. I don't really use it that often, but this was a perfect moment to do it. So it kind of makes things it's like bringing it out, I guess. So let's check it out. Just gave it, so with it off. And then on. Okay, so that really helped. Now I've just noticed here, Andrew said, I mix using my worst speakers. If it sounds okay on those, I figure it should sound awesome on most equipment. That is a good theory, Andrew. I think it's a really good idea to check your mix on your worst speakers, 100% do that. But if you mix on your worst speakers, they're bad speakers because they probably don't give you a good like transparency of what's actually going on in the mix. So you won't be able to hear all the things that are wrong in the mix to fix. So use them to check once you've listened on good speakers first. Yeah. Also, it hurts you. If you mix a lot, you get really exhausted. So it pays to pay attention to the quality of your listening experience for sure. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's check it out. Okay. So this is the inflator. It's kind of like, I don't even know exactly. It's like an upward expander, I think. Dean was saying, is it an oral exciter? An oral exciter, I think, is more kind of, up high frequency compression. But this does something wonderful else. It's an upward expander, I think, or a decompressor. Anyway, we have to read the manual to find out more about it. But I felt that helped anyway. Then I did some EQ. Not really, didn't really do much. Yeah. There's a bit of low mid stuff going on. I actually realized that they weren't the EQs that I wanted, and I decided to use a kind of more character EQ. So I went for this kind of EQ. Now I'm using all these different plugins and stuff, and can you hear those dogs in the background? Sorry, they're going mental. The idea of these different EQs is the different EQs have different characteristics, and they're good for different things. So for example, in this track, in this sound, I want to make it feel more alive, but I don't want to make it feel more brittle. So I've got to think about which EQ might be good to help me do that, because some EQs, when you push the top end, it's just like, ugh, gross. So what I went for was a passive EQ, like a tube EQ, I can kind of push that top without it making it feel bad, sound bad. So I started with that first. So it was this one. Where is it? Yeah. Okay. So this is the mid range, and that's the top and bottom range. So with this one, I boosted quite a lot of 3K, and like normally boosting 3K is like danger for me because it's an area where it's often really ouch. So let's hear what that sounds like. Cool. Okay. So let's turn them off and on again. Turn it off. Okay, so that I really felt like that helped them to come through, but also not to lose the warmth that we want to keep there basically. All right, so now it's really important to hear that with the bass as well. Take them off. Cool, that's feeling better. Nice. Bring in the drums. so good. So now I've got that the piano kind of coming out, but again, not being harsh and losing its character. I want it to still feel kind of muffly, but a little bit more open, if you get my vibe. Okay, so then let's move on to the arps next. Now with the arps, so we've talked about compression and EQ and distortion and stuff for a lot of the drums and bass, and then the piano we had to kind of do some kind of experimental things that maybe wouldn't always do, to think about, okay, what's the problem with this sound and how can I fix it and what tools are going to be best. Then when we get to the arps, we're thinking about a different thing. So as I said, we're talking about the dimensions of mixing. Now with the arps, I felt that they were clouding the bass and the key and the piano. Let's just have a listen to them. Yeah, I'll just put it on. So even you can hear when I put the arp in, when the arp has got nothing on it. Now that we've cleaned out some of the low parts of the bass, we've controlled the bass and those resonances, and we've also cleaned out the low mids from the piano, the arp is coming through a lot better, right? So already by taking care of the other aspects, we put the arp on and we're like, oh, okay, it's kind of working better. So that's great. That's a good sign. But I felt like, okay, we could do even a little bit more. So what I did, I know Drunk Bishop is saying, I can never figure out what to do with my arps in the mix. Your arps are gorgeous. I love them. So yeah, so the thing about this is, like, when we're thinking about building the mix and we're thinking again, if we try and think in these three dimensions, you've got to start to think about what's already there, where is it in the mix, and where do I have space? So I feel that the piano, the bass, and the drums are like the foundation elements, right? So they need to feel as though they're really in the center part of the mix. And then everything else that we've got, which is the arps and the melody and the vocals, they have to fit around it. So with these arps, to me, I'm going to use some stereo processing or some phase processing. In this example, I'm using a chorus. That's going to take the arps from being in the center and kind of competing with the piano and the bass, and it's going to pop them out to the side slightly. Okay, so let's check this out. Okay, let's turn it on. Okay, so that's just a really subtle thing. So using a chorus effect and getting it right, that does. And again, if you want to know more about stereo and phase and the relationship between time and space and everything, there's lots of stuff you can read about it, and I can talk about it more in future sessions. But yeah, so this is this idea, and again, we don't always, EQ and compression is a big important part, but it's not always the answer for everything, right? Okay, other things you can use could be stereo wideners, doublers. There's lots of different versions of this, but they're all essentially phase processors, right? Okay, cool. So now with this, I thought it was sounding good, but I did want to do a little bit more EQ. So as you can see here, so I cut the lows to really make sure that, because it was actually quite low. Let's actually listen to this. So when I take that off, there's a lot of information down in that below 100, but we really can't hear that, and it's getting in the way of the kick and the bass, and we've worked so hard to clean that up. So even though the arp by itself, it sounds really nice, that low part of the arp, we're not hearing it in the mix anyway, so we're going to get rid of it, right? Sammy's saying, what about using mid-side EQ for the arp? Yeah, totally. That's another option that you can do, is to use mid-side EQ. Now, the thing about mid-side EQ is that if you find that there's a certain part of the arp's timbre, i.e. frequency range, that you think should go to the side, then you would use mid-side EQ. But if you want all of the arp to go to the side, then mid-side EQ isn't really the right answer. Okay, so then you'd use something else that's going to completely phase shift the whole of the arp sound. So that was why I didn't use mid-side EQ. All right, and then we have a final one, my favorite, SSL again. This is now, I use this SSL quite a lot because it's sharp, like it's noticeable. It kind of, when you do a card, you can really hear it, and it does it in a way that also doesn't kind of feel as though you're losing. It's like clean, I guess. or crisp. Anyway, try it out if you haven't used them before. Right, okay, so here what did I do? Low information, I boosted about 900, 870 hertz, and I boosted a little bit of 8K just to bring out a bit of the top sparkle. So a couple of dB. How many dB is that? 3 dB and 4 dB. Okay. Yeah, that really helps, I think. Nice. Okay, so that just really brought out the top, and again, those top bits, that's the transient part of the ARP, which is the rhythmic part, which helps us hear the ARP as a distinct sound. So that was really cool. All right. So now let's move along. We're getting to the end of the stream, and we're also getting to the end of the mix, which is good. Okay, we've got the second ARP. When I put that in, we can't hear it, right? Okay, so again, we need to think about what can we do with this sound. And again, so as I said with the ARP, what I felt like what I could do with the ARP is really work this width aspect of the mix dimension. So rather than like overdoing it with EQ, I did do a little bit of an EQ curve and a bit of a boost, but my big secret was to use the doubler, which is waves. Again, this is another phase processing. It creates a double on either side, and you can have the middle or on either side, but I've actually turned off the middle and just had it going to either side. This is like Billie Eilish's mix engineers use this on her vocals all the time. So yeah. Okay, so let's check it out. We'll turn it on. Yes. Right, so we can just hear it when we put it to the side. Awesome. Okay. Now what else have we got? We've got two more things to listen to, and then I will talk a little bit about Sam saying new idea space horn. Yeah. We are two more things to talk about, then we'll finish it off, which is the final, like little icing on the cake with some more spatial processing that I kind of add at the end. So the little melody, which is actually the space horn. So it's this bit here. Now let's listen to it. Okay, so this is one of the only tracks that I gained up a lot. I gained it up 12 dB because I couldn't hear it enough. And more than I couldn't hear it, I think the thing about like gain and stuff like that is that I couldn't use my processors. Like the compressor needed to be really low, or the EQ adjustments and stuff like that was too drastic. So that's a really good kind of point or, question to think about when you're why would I gain stage? Well, in this instance, I had to gain stage because it was like, all the things I was using were too drastic, basically. So I see some questions about let me just go back for a second. So someone's asking, how does the doubler affect the track's mono compatibility? Very good question. It can affect it for sure, but you should always listen to it. Let's just do this. Okay, let's have a listen in mono. 1 second. We'll solo this and then we'll mono the mix. Mono. And back into stereo. Okay, so you can hear that it's not perfect, but it's still there. A way to avoid that, if that is an issue for you, would be, let's try it again, is to keep the mono one on, and then we go back into mono, if you like that better. Yep. I was reading something that I think was Katrin Anders, mix engineer, and he uses wild widening, and he was like, I don't give a fuck, man, about like mono. And he basically was like, I don't care, I'm mixing stereo and I accept that loss if that's the case. You decide. I always listen for it, and as long as it doesn't completely go and it still kind of works in a context, then I'm happy with it. Because often when it's gone completely, there might be some underlying phase problems that you might not have realized. It's beyond the widening effect that might be going on. Anyway. Okay, so where were we? All right, so we're at the space horn. Okay, so with the space horn, I did some EQ adjustments, and then I also did this is a bit experimental. Now this one, again, just in the fun of showing you some different approaches. Now this is a transformer, so this is from Kush. They do some really good stuff. Now I won't get into a whole big thing about transformers. They are parts of circuits of analog gear. They are often actually the part of the circuit that gives the gear its famous tone and character and color. So for example, the Model A, this is modeled on the transformer of the 1176 revision A that had this transformer. I can't remember the name of the transformer, but it's that characteristic of that like 60s style 1176 compressor. Those ultra geeks out there that are interested and that are following me. So this is if you don't want to compress, but you want the character of that thing, right? So yeah, it's a bit of fun. So with this, I wanted, again, it's kind of like saturation, but it's a little bit more like tone shaping or something without it being super gainy. So doesn't gain it up massively, just changes it. So let's stop talking and let me play it for you. So I'll just maybe solo this so you can hear what's happening. So it's kind of like it's a coloration thing, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, it's subtle. It's not a massive thing, but I thought I'd show you. Okay, and then some compression. It's pretty subtle, pretty simple, pretty subtle with that one. Okay, cool. Now for me, why did I do that was because I couldn't really hear it. It was like it was barely there. So I wanted to make it more prevalent. I brought it up, and then I put this EQ here because once I brought it up, then the upper parts of it were actually really too loud. And what I wanted in the sound was actually this kind of like upper mid stuff around between 800 and 1 to 2K. So I eased it off, right? So I do have a plan for this. Why did I turn it up? Is that then I also want to send it out the back of the mix to a space. So it's going to fly around the back of the mix. Okay, so let's actually move on to space because we're already at 8 o'clock and we need to finish up. So I'll just talk about that now. So I've got a big space and I tried a few different, you can see there was a few different reverbs I tried, but I settled on the Valhalla vintage verb as I often do because I love it. And let's have a listen. We'll just solo this one first up. Excuse me. Right, so let's take it off and then turn it on. Cool, okay. Okay, so with that one, it just helps it fly around the back, and I also might turn this down in the mix a bit further. So let's bring the whole mix in. Let's go. Now with this, basically what I did was I wanted to have like a fairly large hall. I didn't do much with it. This is like the default that loads up with. I like the hall. I liked it to be about 4 seconds. The thing that I did change was the EQ. Okay, so I thought about the tone of it. So let me just play that. So it's kind of like that. But that was too low and it would get in the way and it would mess up all of the clarity that I just brought into the low end. So I definitely wanted that to be not happening. So I took it out. Okay. Other than that, I don't think I did much else. Cool. The only other thing that I haven't mentioned is delay and echo. And this is just for a bit of, this is again just fun and for a little bit more excitement and like a bit more, I don't know, lushness of the mix, is that the arps, the arps and the piano I put into the delay. So let's check it out. And I did something special here. So I used the echo and I did mid side. And so the mid part has got one movement characteristic, and then the sides have got a different one. And then I also did some modulation, so it's kind of going to warble a little bit because that felt like it works with the vibe of the track. And then I put a little bit of wobble in. Yeah. All right, let's check it out. Just gives it a bit of flushness. Potentially a little bit messy still, but that's where I got it to so far. All right, and that is everything. Well, I didn't talk about the vocal. One final thing on the vocal, a little bit of EQ and some compression. With this, again, I cut out a lot of the lows and I boosted actually quite a lot of like 10K. And then I used a smooth and silky optical style compressor. Yeah. Let's check it out. And I put a little, there's a little bit of parallel tube going on there with something. What was it? Oh, with the piano. Okay, that's another thing I did to help it cut through the mix. Let's hear if that does anything. Yeah, that does a lot. I like that. All right, so let's have a little listen. I'm going to check out some of the comments, and that's a wrap. So if you have any questions, hit me up with them. Say, of course, big happy birthday to ADSR. Exciting week of fun and games. Awesome. All right, everyone. So you have some questions? Hit me up. Any other questions I didn't answer? Yeah. I'll stick around for a couple more minutes. Other than that, thank you so much, everyone, for joining the stream. Yeah, thank you for joining the stream. Thanks for all your questions and for your engagement. And I hope that you learned some stuff. It seems like a lot of you did, and that's really cool. I thoroughly enjoyed it, as I always do. Drunk Bishop, thank you so much for your track. Amazing stuff. And let's let me check out some of these questions. All right. Okay, so what have we got? William missed the stream. No worries, William. Thanks for turning up anyway, and check it out. The good news is you can check it out afterwards. So Devil Mix is saying, how good is it to mix with the HD25s? It's okay. It's there. The HD25s are pushed in the low mid, so you definitely have to be aware of that. Also, they're closed, so some of the spatial stuff is not always that great, and the transients, I think with headphones you always have to be really careful about it. So yeah, yeah, they're okay. In short, I use lots of different headphones anyway. If I was going to say one brand, I think the Bayer Dynamic ones are probably the best. Adam have a really good set of headphones called the HP25s. AKG 140s I've used in the past. I really think it's important. Everyone's ears are different. That's the other thing, is that you should just go and listen to your favorite tracks and decide what you think sounds best. Just trust yourself. That's really the best thing to say. Cool. Albert Jaron. Yo, can you say my name? Albert Jaron. Awesome. All right. Cool. I can't see anyone. Oh, Pref X is asking for correlation meter on the master. Yes. Correlation meter. There you go. Oh, hang on, you can't see it. There you go. Cool. All right. If there's no more questions, everyone, I guess that's a wrap. Thanks again. Have a lovely week. I'm going on holidays for a couple of weeks. I'm going to go get a tan and get to the beach. But I'll be back again in August, and we've got lots more great stuff happening. So if you have any requests of things you want to do, I will be continuing to do mixing, but I'm also going to look at some production stuff as well. So maybe vocal production or some sound design. Like, also hit me up if there's anything that you would be interested to check out. Yeah. Awesome, everyone. I guess that's it. So thanks again and have a lovely week. See you later.